Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and this is gonna be my review on DC's Night Terrors Week 5. I got 6 books to go over. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help. Hit the bell. It's all free. Doesn't cost you anything. The bell just keeps you in the loop when I drop videos because I don't have a schedule. So down below there's going to be timestamps in case you want to skip to each individual, in case you read one and you didn't read another. Or also in the description below will be all the the details of each individual book, the writers, the artist, the letterer, and the colorist. So without further ado, let's get into it because I got 6 books to cover, and this was a fantastic week in this event. We're going to start off with the Night Terrors proper, issue number 3. Fantastic issue. Now, I didn't note this on the last issue, but it's been doing this thing where Deadman, the last issue, started out with a newscaster. This one, he's doing this whole like Shakespearean theatrical thing. I don't know if that's going to mean anything later on, but I'd like to point that out. So this book starts off like right where we were with, the Sandman and Batman / Deadman, because Deadman's currently in Batman. And with the sleepless nights, they're basically fighting them at the bottom of they're in Terrific Tech or whatever, because they're down there with Mr. Terrific. He's in this comatose state. We learned quite a bit in the last issue, but basically the Knights are after both Deadman and Batman. At the last second, Damian shows up. We find out that Damian is awake because, if you read the free comic book day Night Terror thing that was right before the Night Terror thing, you saw that Damian was researching ways to stay awake. Not only that, but to control his nightmares. He was prepared for this enemy, basically. So he shows up and he basically saves Batman and... well, I should say Deadman. And Batman's asleep. Deadman's just walking in his body kind of thing. So it's really just Deadman and Wesley Dobbs, the Sandman. And again, Sandman is like a... he's a zombie right now. He's resurrected with the Lazarus resin. As soon as they get onto this bat plane and they escape the compound, Damian, being his badass self, realizes that this is not his father and that there's a demon inhibiting his body, and basically calls forth Deadman to come out of his body. He quickly recognizes Boston Brand. It does mention that they've met before, and we'll get to see that later on, kind of setting up something. Well, basically at this time they use this moment for Deadman to hop back into Insomnia's, because now they're kind of connected. So we go back into Insomnia's memories, and we see this, and it's kind of cool because right here we do get to see the Deadman sees all the different nightmares that all the different characters are going through right now. Because he's in Insomnia's mind, he gets to see all the different nightmares he's messing with. But we basically get this origin story, and it's like a it's Insomnia before he was Insomnia, and basically he was he doesn't want to sleep. He doesn't ever explain why. Basically, he's in this this traumatic group where he's supposed to be getting over in a traumatic event. We find out it was caused by the Justice League, and that's why he has some resentment for the Justice League. It's not stated why, but in the scene it gets crazy, and those horror vibes come back because during the scene he ends up breaking this glass, taking these shards, and he ends up killing the main guy who's running this group, and he starts going after the other people, but before he can, he ends up and the whole time he's claiming that he needs to stay awake. So eventually he cuts his own eyelids out, shown down here with those glass, and that's how we get the way Insomnia looks. It's not just a gimmick or whatever. It's something that he did to himself in real life to stay awake. At the very end of that, as he's seeing that, Boston Brand actually, Insomnia turns to Boston Brand, knowing that he's watching, and he's like, hey, you liking these memories? Kind of thing, and it scares the crap out of Deadman, brings it back to reality, but at this point, they have a little more, to go on kind of thing, because we find out that the Nightmare Stone's not exactly in a nightmare or in the waking world either. It's in this place, it's in between, and that's where Sandman kind of comes in. They head over to Wayne Industries with the help of Damien, because they need the use of a chemical lab. Sandman is known for, having this sleep gun that he created himself, being a master chemist kind of thing. And he tells them he could get both of them to this place called the Hollow. The Hollow exists in between the waking and the dreaming world. It's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. And we see the Damien and Deadman as Batman, head into the I think it's called the Hollow. Now, as soon as this happens, like the Sleepless Knights find, Wesley Dodds, and they start doing this whole fight in the background kind of thing, while he's trying to protect Deadman and Robin, and that's what it's called. It's called the Hollow. It's also called the Reality Stream too. They kind of show you exactly what the Hollow looks like, and basically the way they explain it is the reason it looks like this, like Robin's head and Batman's head, is because their minds are still trying to process what's going on. So it's kind of like they're dreaming, kind of like they're still awake. Like I said, once as this is going on, Sandman's in the background fighting them. We got Insomnia, and he's trying to get to Robin and Deadman and everything, but he can't get into this reality because he can only do nightmares kind of thing. We do see something new. This is brand new. We find this, and Deadman says it like this: I visited the House of Secrets, I visited the House of Mystery before. This is brand new. This must be the House of Horror, and it even states, right here. So we're getting something brand new in the DC, mythos and everything. Again, in the background, we got Sandman fighting the knights, and it's specifically this one horse-faced looking knight or whatever. Eventually, they go into the House of Horrors, and it looks like a circus, and we find out that inside it's Boston Brand's lies. And we find out that all along Boston Brand's been lying about his origin. He's been telling people that he died the second he got shot, even before he hit the ground. And we find out that he didn't die like that. That he did feel the shot. That he did feel the, when he hit the ground kind of thing. And he laid there for a little bit before he died. And so hence, this is why it's called his lies, because it goes back. But basically, we find out that the stone is inside him, and he has to sacrifice the lies that he's been telling people for the stone to come forth. And as soon as they do this, and they kind of show you that he has to literally dig into this fake imagery kind of thing. But when he does that, that's when we get the stone. It appears, they come back out. As soon as they do that sleepless night, he just just kind of blam, This is the end of the issue right there, but there is one more note. As soon as Deadman comes through with Batman, he does say oh, we're gonna stop this guy, but then at the very bottom he says something about his dreams coming true, and with this weird smile. But that's where this issue leaves off. The next one is the Flash. Currently the Flash is trying to save Wally from getting impaled from Gorilla Grodd, and he's looking for this, he's trying to go faster than this monster that's in the Speed Force. And basically it is just, Barry trying to go, and it's like attempt 33, blah, blah, blah. As he's going through this, and he mentioned this the last time, the Speed Force is literally hurting him because he's going so fast. At this point, it's changing him, and you see it right here because he goes back to the hospital to check on Wally after failing so many times. And this dude just looks like some kind of beast of the Flash. He's not even humanoid looking. Iris kind of points this out. She's like, man, you're so hurt, you need the hospital kind of thing. You've changed into this monstrous thing, you just need to be here for Wally. So that kind of fades away, and then all of a sudden he kind of goes to sleep and then wakes back up, and then his mom is there, and he's like, what are you doing here, Mom? Blah blah blah. And basically his mom is telling him to go save Wally, that he's the only one that can do it, he's the fastest. But as you can see, and all of this is just Insomnia messing with the Flash. So basically Barry goes back to it, but this time he has a different plan. He ends up going back to the Green Lantern, and this time he tells him that he wants to go forward, that he knows how to do this. The Green Lantern tries to stop him, and he does something horrible. He ends up killing Green Lantern in this quick fashion where he just cuts him in different pieces and leaves him in heads basically to the 25th century where Ubon Thawne is shown right here. And basically he shows up to Uborn, the Reverse Flash, and and he's like, hey, I need your speed, and Uborn Thawne's like, come and get it, and this fight breaks out. At first, he has the Spear of Destiny, the Flash does, and the Reverse Flash thinks he's there for that. He's not. He's there to steal Reverse Flash's energy. Reverse Flash is faster than the regular Flash, even at this beast state. But Barry basically says that he has something that the Reverse Flash would never have, and it's the loss of everything. That he has nothing else to lose, kind of thing. And at this point, Barry is a villain. He basically sticks his hand through, Reverse Flash, like, hey man, don't make your hand solid. You don't want to do that. You're not a villain, kind of thing. And as soon as he does that, just he cuts a hole right through him, takes his hand back. He also loses his hand in the process, but at this point, he don't care. We're already seeing the limits that Barry's willing to go to, and there is no limit. He's willing to do anything and everything to save, Wally West and everything. So basically, now he's drained all of the Reverse Flash, and he's got all the speed he thinks he needs, and he takes off. He goes backwards through time because again he was in the 25th century, so he goes back in time and he stops at the moment right before Wally dies, and he's like, look, Iris, I was there, because Iris kept telling him that he needed to be there, when Wally passed away or whatever. But then he goes back and he gets to that point where Gorilla Grodd is about to stop him, and as soon as he gets, close enough to do this, the monster in the Speed Force grabs the spear, and we find out what the monster is, and it's basically the Paradox. It's him, all the different attempts trying to save Wally. It basically made this monster in the Speed Force, and it's kind of like the inevitability of what he's trying to do. It just won't work, and he's eventually going to be added to that monster in the Speed Force, because just like he has changed into this monstrous beast, that's what all these other Barrys had changed into, trying to do the same thing. But as soon as he gets he's about to get absorbed by this monster ball looking thing that's in the Speed Force, all of a sudden he gets tackled, and instantly he knows it's Wally, and you see that he's getting tackled through the Speed Force. They go plummeting through the ground, and we find out that, of course, Wally wasn't dead, nowhere near death or whatever, that basically Barry has been asleep this whole time. Somehow Wally was asleep too, and he woke up, and that's how he's been trying to catch Barry the whole time. And that's when you find out the destruction that the Flash has been causing, because he hasn't just been asleep, in a bed. He's been sleepwalking and literally sleep running, and all the damage that he's caused to a city, it looks like. But basically, Wally said it took all the Speed Force members to try and catch him, and eventually none of them really could except for Wally, and it baits the question that Wally is faster than Barry. It took his speed to catch Barry, kind of thing. Alright, and that's where that one ends. And the next one, we got Zatanna. Zatanna was at the bottom of the Hall of Justice with Justice League Dark. She was saving Wonder Woman and Detective Chimp because they fell asleep. They are protected now in this magical maze that's at the bottom of the Hall of Justice, and now Zatanna's trying to kind of make it out alive, because she's being chased another than Robot Man, which has turned into this Rust Knight guy. The Sleepless Queen stabbed him and he turned into this thing. So now basically she's running for her life, and this one's pretty quick. There is some major stuff. There's some dope art. Basically all the Knights are chasing her. At this point they don't want to kill her or whatever. They want to add her to the Sleepless Army, just like they have Robot Man. There's this part where she realizes that, because she already knows she's in not a nightmare, but the magic that's in this hall is affecting her. But being the great magician she is, she kind of propels in that area. As she goes forward, she notices that the maze is changing. It's something that the Sleepless Queen is doing, and she brings back the guild, the one of the, it's Zatanna's dad, and basically it's built from her guilt or whatever. it kind of backfires because they do this whole thing where they drag like Zatanna through her memories and stuff, and it's basically like, and I think his name is Zatan, you know, but basically her dad, like, it was kind of highlighting the best things that she had already done, so it just made her better. They went back to this memory where it was all about this magic trait and bait thing. Bait and trick, you know, switch and bait, I don't know. But that's what they end up doing with the Sleepless Queen here. She ends up thinking that she's got Zatanna. She goes to stab her and make her one of the knights, and as soon as she does, she realizes that she made a mistake. She got too close, and it was just like a magic clone. She ends up grabbing the sword from the Sleepless Queen, and the sword has the ability to change people into, you know, those minions. So Zatanna figures that it has the ability to change it back, and guess what it does? Cliff comes back. He goes after the Sleepless Knights and start, you know, beating ass. Eventually, the Sleepless Knights, you know, they realize with the sword they're in mega danger, and they just end up disappearing. We get this dope, like, I'm sorry, you know, from Zatanna, you know, because she dragged Cliff into this. Cliff is like, oh, hell no, man, let's do this. And this is kind of the last thing we see is Zatanna opening a portal with that dope-ass sword that she's got now that can undo these, you know, Sleepless Nights kind of thing. And they basically say that they're off to go mess up the big bad guys, and that's that one. Next one we got is Green Lantern, and this one is probably the read of the week besides the main issue. The first Green Lantern issue was all about like the regrets and faults and things that Green Lantern had gone through, you know, during his life. At this point, he's getting, you know, beat the hell up by his nightmare, and the nightmare starts talking to him, and he starts talking, oh, you're gonna fear so much, and he's like, wait, did you say fear? He was like, oh, you didn't know about me. And he was like, you know, I basically have no fear. You know, I got this whole willpower thing, and like, you know, the nightmare is like, nah, it can't be like this. And Green Lantern's like, yeah, it's like this. It gets to a point where the nightmare is like, well, you know, I'll bring, you know, he was like, I brought all these nightmares from the darkest, deepest, you know, parts of your memory, and Hal's like, that those weren't like regrets or, you know, stuff I haven't dealt with. The reason they're in the back of my mind is because I've already dealt with them. That's the reason they're back there. He was like, I've used them to propel myself, so I don't regret any of those kind of things. And basically he starts beating the hell out of the nightmare. The nightmare kind of like tries to do this whole like, oh, well, I'll bring the darkness, and he's like, oh, you never heard my oath, you know, and he kind of like, he does the whole oath thing. The rest of this book is just the nightmare trying to get the hell away from Green Lantern, and Green Lantern being just a pure badass. The nightmare keeps throwing different nightmares, you know, like parts of his past at Green Lantern, and it just don't work. Honestly, like, and I don't want to go too much into it, but just Green Lantern terrorizes the nightmare, if that's even a possibility, and it's all based on, you know, Green Lanterns don't fear. That's their whole thing, the willpower, and it's something that they have to overcome. But basically, eventually at the end of it, like, the nightmare gets so scared or whatever of like how, you know, the way he's tormenting the nightmare, he basically releases Hal and gets him out of he's like, no, you know, I'm out of here, and he basically, you know, he gets woken up at the very end. You know, Hal wakes back up in the plane when he fell asleep, and the plane is basically like on autopilot, but he can't control the plane, so he eventually does the Green Lantern thing and controls it like that. But that's where this issue is. Now, there is a side story that was going on in the first issue. It's about Sinestro. This one is like the flip opposite. It's all about like, you know, like Sinestro used to be this noble person, but then he changed into this like horrible villain kind of thing. And it's all about like he doesn't know who he is kind of thing. It goes back and forth where he knows he's in a nightmare and something's messing with him the whole time. Every time Sinestro talks, he keeps mentioning that he's going to beat the hell out of whoever's doing this to him. But it's the same kind of thing. You know, his whole moniker is based on fear, so the nightmares can't really affect him like that. But at the end of it, it's like eventually his own like nightmare self is the one that kind of helps him get through this, and it's not really get through it. He's more like trying to escape the nightmare. Eventually he does, and he believes he's getting help from another version, like the best version of Sinestro or something like that. But it's not. It's like another nightmare messing with him, and And it's the same thing. It's the nightmare trying to mess with him, and it just doesn't work. You know, Sinestro's like, yeah, I've already dealt with that. And the way I did some horrible things when it came to my daughter, but he was like, I did what I did. Now I can't go back and change that kind of thing. It basically ends with him getting out of his nightmare, waking up, and now it's just like he knows who he is, what he's going to do, and it does mention that we're going to see it in the next issue of Green Lantern kind of thing. Basically, he's going back to the big bad moniker is what it looks like. Alright, we got Robin, and honestly this was probably my least favorite. It wasn't bad by any means, but probably my least favorite just because it had the least to do with the main storyline. It was still a nightmare and everything. But we got Tim Drake and Jason Todd stuck in each other's nightmares. They were so close to each other that somehow their nightmares got mixed up. We got Jason Todd, and he's fighting like kind of himself when he was like the bad version of the Red Hood. And then we got like Tim Drake, and it's this whole like failure that he's not like he can't save his dad, and he can't be the Robin that he needs to be. And it's kind of the same thing. They both, in this one, they both help each other. There's these parts where they're like floating in the void where the nightmare's not messing with them. It really is, but it has an opposite effect. You know, Insomnia thinks by isolating them in this, you know, that it'll make them more deprived or more. No, it ends up like they end up like helping each other by talking to each other through the void. Like, you know, Tim telling, you know, Jason that he's not the failure. The Batman failed him. His mom failed him. You know. And those aren't the things that made him, you know, who he is today. And it goes back with Tim Drake as well as like, you know, like him being one of the better Batmans and him being like, you know, handpicked and stuff like that. It basically goes down to just things they can't do because Jason's not known for help, like needing help. And Tim Drake, it's more about letting go the people he can't save kind of thing, aka his father who got killed by Boomerang, and he's worried about Bernard during this whole thing. As soon as they let that go, their nightmares are kind of over. They kind of tag team each other's nightmares kind of thing. And that's the whole rest of the book. Eventually it's like they do the opposite thing where it's like they don't know they're in a nightmare, but they're smart enough by being Batman's like equivalents that, you know, that they have figured out, you know, and basically they do the opposite. It's like, you know, with Robin's Red Hood things, instead of fighting him, he just sits there and he waits for Tim Drake to come save him. And basically, Tim Drake overcomes his stuff on his own, and he's the one that goes and saves Jason. At the very end of it, Jason wakes up first. He's right where he fell asleep. Thank God he didn't like fall off the roof or whatever. And then he goes and heads out for Tim. He tries calling Tim as soon as he can. Tim wakes up a little later, and they start talking. And bam, that's where this one ends. Most of them like have an ending that says like, you know, we'll see them in the next issue of Night's End or whatever. You know, that one did not. It was just like that was the end. Last but not least, we got Shazam #2. The beginning of this one was, you know, Mary Marvel. It was all about her. But basically, she was stuck in this like rotating, you know, reoccurring nightmare of just, you know, this bad Shazam killing the kids kind of thing. And that's where we're starting off, like right where the last one left off, with Shazam coming to kill, you know, Mary Marvel by using the Shazam word or whatever. And I should say Captain Marvel because, you know, they're calling him the Captain now. But basically, you know, as soon as he says that, she's like, man, this is my dream. She was like, man, you really did not study me. She was like, I've been letting you mess with me the whole time because I was just kind of bored or whatever, but like, one of my powers is I have like the wisdom of Minivira, or what is it? Don't quote me on that real quick. But something like that. She's got like the power of somebody, the wisdom of Minivira. She says it right there. I had to find it while I was looking down. No, but basically she tells this nightmare thing, like, you didn't research us, like, before you hopped in our nightmares. And like basically at this point, you know, she ends up beating the crap out of Captain. She ends up waking herself out of her own. Well, she doesn't wake herself up. She comes out of her dream like in a, like, I don't know, like a hologram type of thing, like a psychosis. But basically, she ends up going to all the other kids in the house because she realized she was having these nightmares. They must be having the same nightmares. And it was something also that Shazam mentioned, the bad Shazam mentioned during their nightmare, that there was some kind of like insomnia wave. So she puts two and two together, and she goes to all the other kids, and basically she helps them through their nightmares by giving them the Shazam powers, you know, in their nightmares, starting out with Darla, and then she goes to like Eugene, and then Freddie. Billy is the only one that's not here, and she kind of mentions that she's scared that she doesn't know what Billy's going through. But basically that is the sum total as she goes to each individual, and you know, basically during their nightmare, because she's already free of those kind of, you know, powers or whatever, and she does her mom and dad too, the foster. She ends up taking the dad out of his nightmare and putting him with her mom, you know. But basically at the end of it, we see that this bad version of Shazam, which is insomnia, and he keeps telling her, like, it doesn't matter whose nightmare you go to, this is my realm, I control it, kind of thing. And he shows her by using force and stuff like that, but it doesn't stop Mary. But we get to this point where it looks like it's getting really grim, and it like as she's going through this, she's just getting like tinier and tinier and minuscule, and she's like losing that ego power that she had in the beginning, kind of thing. Not ego in a bad way, but as soon as she looks like she's about to like be Shazam, you know, we see that, you know, that she wasn't the only one that thought, you know, about themselves, that the whole family come for her too in her nightmare to rescue her, and at that point they just end up beating the hell out of Insomnia. And he asked one question that kind of resonates big time, and he was like, well, why isn't this working? And they're like, it's because we have like the courage of Achilles, you know, and all of them do have that. And I mean, that tells you right there, the no fear thing, it doesn't really work on them. At the very end, we see Mary waking up after they defeated Insomnia in the dream as a family team. They do mention, and she had managed to grab like the bad Shazam's cape as they like knocked him out of the dream or whatever. At the very end, we see this bad version of Billy in the real world. I have no idea what that means, but it does say it will be continued in Night's End. But Mary isn't like too freaked out about it. She, you know, basically shows Shazam and goes after him, kind of thing. But at this point, I have to assume that, you know, Shazam's being affected by the nightmare, and that's why he looks like that. I don't know, because that was the real world. But that is my review on all of these Night Terror books. It was an excellent week. I want to say there were some better ones than others. The main Night Terror book was great. The Zatanna I loved. The Flash, the Green Lantern was fantastic, man. I went and told my brother, you know, all about the Green Lantern thing, and he enjoyed it thoroughly, just the story. But, you know, let me know down below, how are you liking this series? You know, are you digging this, or, you know, are some hit or miss? Because I've liked pretty much all of them. Let me know down below. I get off on that stuff, guys. Please like, you know, comment down below. Let me know down below if you're liking this, if you don't like this. You know, I don't know. I can say one thing, this is real, you know, this event is probably one of the best we've gotten from DC in a long time. Not only that, it's probably one of the first events that it feels like everything is together, like all the tie-ins, the main series. It feels like you could have read the main series by itself. You could read it in totality like I'm doing. Or you probably could have just read some of the tie-ins and would have gotten it from there. I'm not sure, you know. But as far as like it including like continuity, it is a main continuity. They do mention stuff that's going on in the main Dawn of DC stuff a lot. As far as an event, I think this is the like most precise, contained, like thought out. I mean, we haven't got to the end, but I mean, this has been pretty amazing. Alright guys, that's my review. I will let y'all go. That's all I got for you.